most likely going to be VFL's BNF, like so. My aim is after this.
I thought they were insane for not drafting you the first couple of years because
the concussion that I had was I think it was a factor in not being chosen. I didn't know who I was, where I was, what was going on for 8 hours. I think that was one of the best things. We had a lot of extra technology, and that's something that should be protocol, but it doesn't happen. And a few clubs came back to me and just said, look, we're looking at the youth girls. We're just going to be drafting from there particularly. And it was noticeable, even the draft this year, like it was all young girls, even obviously Meg Keeley got picked, who's mature, and she's definitely a lot younger than I am. And most likely going to be VFL's BNF, like across the whole thing. And I think she was like a later pick, so it's pretty difficult to get picked now unless you are a youth girl. So my aim is after this, I do want to play another VFL season just to get a proper season, hopefully get a proper season playing at a higher level and just see what happens. I think take that pressure off myself, be a bit more of a, pass on what I know to the younger ones, which I was doing anyway. And then, just take a bit of pressure off myself and enjoy it a little bit more than trying to really push for that next level. But we'll see what happens, If it happens, I won't say no. Like,
I thought from the beginning, I thought they were insane for not drafting you the first couple of years, because I think the big problem that they had those 2 years was, and it was quite evident on the field, that they didn't have enough footy players on there.
Yes, 100% agree. I think there's a fair few of us who had been playing football for a while, or been those sort of trailblazers, doing all the exhibition matches, or doing the Swans Academy or the GWS academies, and then kind of were just overlooked. And I think there was a fair few of us going, well, hang on a second, we've done all of this work leading into it. We know about football, we know the rules of football, which, as you said, was evident. Sometimes there were some players coming across from other codes or different things, and for some players that worked, there were some players who it really transferred across and they picked up the skills straight away. But then there were some others that wasn't the case, and that meant that there were girls who, had been playing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years who were just pulling their hair out going, that's spots for people who absolutely love and know the game. So, but for the conversation we're having, I think even the concussion that I had was I think it was a factor in not being chosen in a way, because I know in my playing career so far, even coming down here to Melbourne, I'd meet people I don't even know, and they're like, oh yes, we've heard about you, you've had that head knock. And I'd be like, how is that something that is so well known? But and that's kind of it. Then that would be the conversation over, without really going, well, actually I've done a lot of work around my concussions. I've moved on from that. I just keep maintaining the stuff I have to do to make sure I'm in an okay place to play. But it kind of seemed to be a bit of a roadblock. It was kind of just well, that's happened to you.
Were they players or coaches, or who? How do you think they found out?
Both. There were some players, there were coaches, there were team managers as well, because in and around that 2018 year, I was messaging a couple of clubs who were doing their VFL trials or tryouts, or and just emailing them or registering and being like, I want to come down and have a trial, come to your trial days. And a couple of them being like, oh, aren't you that one that had that head knock? Same thing, we might be looking at some of the younger ones or showing up to some of the trials, and you could see they were like, oh yeah, we've heard about you. Can we just watch how I'm training and how I'm playing and look at the footage I've sent and stuff like that? But
why invite you down if they've already made that decision?
Well, some of them didn't even say yes to me coming to trials. So
wow,
yeah,
that's amazing. You're still vice captain of Carlton, aren't you?
yes. So that was very fortunate. I was very happy that I came down that year, came to their trial, and they said pretty much the next day they called and said, yes, we'd like to have you in our team. And then during pre-season and everything, there were no captains or anything. And then player voted, and sort of coaches had a say in it as well. So I was pretty chuffed with that, because I was like, okay, because you do have that feeling of, especially coming from New South Wales and Victoria as a football state, of, am I going to make it here? Am I even going to be able to keep up with the teams here? I wonder what the skill level is like, and to be able to come down and then have them go, yes, we'd like to have you here as the leader. I was pretty chuffed.
Yeah. Do you think that their opinion of the Sydney, New South Wales quality of football has changed over the last few years? Because I know when we were playing together 10 years ago, there was a mile of difference between the two. But yeah.
I think there still is a bit of a stigma around, like, New South Wales is behind us, but I think they're changing their tune pretty quickly, because, like, myself, I was vice captain for Carlton. Meg Keeley had come down, or back down. She was captain for North Melbourne. Bunks, who's from Canberra, she's captain of Collingwood. Like, there's a few New South Wales, Canberra players coming down and killing it. And they're like, oh, hang on a second. We didn't think you guys really knew how to play, or even figuring out VAFA down here, which is like Victorian. Oh, anyway, they've got all these different leagues, but VAFA has only been around for about 5 years. And I was like, well, I've been playing for 12 now, so maybe have a look elsewhere. There's definitely girls who know how to play and are just as passionate and follow it every weekend. And if you, like us, been to the after the game celebrations, everyone talks about the nitty gritty of absolutely everything. Everyone loves it. So yeah, and the skill is getting better and better and better. I think maybe, like, New South Wales probably doesn't have the pathways as much as down here still. I think there was a podcast a little while ago that they were talking about that, about in New South Wales, kind of, we've got the Prems, and for a couple of years there they had the GWS doing VFL and flying every now and again, but they haven't got that. There seems to be the youth girls happening, but then in that senior level there isn't that link coming through, and that's why everyone's moving to different states. So just to improve and get better and have the facilities and the support and extra information. So
you're the vice captain of Carlton Football Club and a brilliant chiropractor. I know from personal experience that you're an amazing teammate and a fierce competitor. Can you tell us a little bit more about your sporting history?
I grew up in a little country town, so played every sport under the sun, really. I think it was mainly to get out of our parents' out of the way some of the time. So biggest thing probably when I was growing up, though, I was a runner. So I did a lot of athletics and cross country and got to a fairly high level with that. And then just during high school, played, touch football, tennis, hockey, cricket, whatever was happening. So I did come to AFL fairly late. I had a bit of a lull after high school, and I was working in a bar in Glebe, who just happened to be the sponsors for Sydney Uni. And both the boys' teams and the girls' teams would come in after training every Wednesday and after their games every Saturday and just bug me. And then finally, two girls actually, just kept bugging, being like, come down and have a training session. And I was like, I've never played, I've never seen the game. And finally I just was like, all right, I'll come and try it out, and bang, I've been pretty much to every single training session, every game since for 12 years. So,
who are the two players that you're attributing to your playing career?
Flick and Wellesley. So please tell, what's Wellesley's real name? Move on. It's like, having a mental blank. But yeah, Flick and Wellesley.
How have you gone managing work and footy?
Oh, that's been tough. So I probably, for a couple of years there, but in the first couple of years of my uni life, probably I wasn't the best student because I was more focused on football and having some fun. But yeah, it's definitely been in the later years of uni, had to really knuckle down, and that was kind of all my life was at that stage, was just uni, studying, training, playing, repeat. And then very similar with life afterwards as well. Work, train, play, a little bit of fun, repeat. So yeah, it definitely takes up a lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication, a lot of passion. And, I think a lot of people who play sport consider to say a lot of your friendship group are the same people that you work and play with, because it is quite demanding of your time. It's very, you have to have quite supportive friends and family who know that that's your passion. You're most likely going to be going there. You're doing that. You don't have that much time for the other stuff. So, yeah, it takes a big chunk of your life, but it's worth it.
Did you have any issues with family, with being a chiropractor and you deciding to go down the sports path? Did you have any issues with that?
Not really. Oh, actually, down here, when I've moved down here, I've had to, or even any of the work really, I did make it very known from the beginning whenever I've started jobs at places that I play AFL. It's my passion. So these nights I have to finish early because I'm going to training, or on Saturdays, because a lot of the time as chiropractors or anyone in health, people want to come and see you outside of work hours. So on Saturdays, having to sort of say to my work, some days I might only be able to work 2 hours because my game's starting at this time and I'll have to leave. Or I'm not going to work the morning because the game's in the morning, I'll come and work afterwards. So definitely some sacrifices. And yeah, definitely with some workplaces, they might have turned around and gone, well, we really need you to work till this hour on that day. And I would have to just turn around and go, well, I'm probably not suitable for this place because I'm going to training. Like I'm going. There's no, unless it's really important, I'm going. So thank you.
Can you give us a little bit of a background on your concussion?
Yes. Well, I've had a couple actually, but my major concussion was in 2015, playing against UNSW. But it was a fairly scary one in that I've got no recollection at all. I only know of what people told me, and I think what happened was someone tackled me pretty hard, and they've hit me, and I've hit the back of my head on the ground, is what I've been told anyway. Taken straight off, was able to run off. Be taken off. I'm pretty hard to take off the field. I don't really ever like coming off, but it was pretty evident pretty quickly that I was going downhill. I think thankfully that game my mum was there, who's a GP, and she was like, she needs to go to hospital. She needs to get to hospital now. And then I didn't know who I was, where I was, what was going on for 8 hours. So it was a very significant one. I had to go in for CT scans and MRIs and stay overnight in hospital once I figured out who I was again. So And then afterwards took me about 6 to 8 months before I got back to playing. It was kind of a sort of, I guess, blessing in disguise that it happened halfway through the season. And so I missed the rest of that season, except for one sneaky 5 minutes, and then had the off season to get myself better. But I think the hardest thing was in those sort of 6 months, I struggled both physically and I guess psychologically, had a lot of anxiety, had a lot of what they would call probably now panic disorder, which was the hardest part, because before that you kind of think, you're young, you think you're invincible, was really sociable, loved the social aspect of the game, loved hanging out with my friends, family, doing all that stuff, and just not being able to be in control all the time of how my body was reacting to certain situations, or not being able to do whatever I wanted to do. And so that was a little bit myself, but also a little bit of the people around me, were particularly not letting me come back and play and train when I wanted to, which was the right thing at the time. But yeah, it did take a fair while to get myself to a place that I could return to play without worrying, which was hard.
You mentioned the anxiety. What other symptoms did you have?
So with that sort of anxiety of being chiropractor, kind of know what was happening anyway. Usually with concussions, what happens is it really affects your vestibular system. So you basically either bruised or rattled your brain. And I think for me, particularly having the back of my head being hit, slightly affecting visual things. So with the vestibular complex, it's in charge of your balance. So it uses your eyes, your ears. So there's fluid and crystals in your ears that tell you where your head is in space, and then your joints. And so if there's any imbalance in that information in all those three systems, then it either massively makes your anxiety, brings on the anxiety or the panic attacks, or makes you feel dizzy or nauseous or sick and stuff like that. So your body's trying so hard already to figure out where it is in space and heal itself at the same time and let you do your daily things, that when then you have any other sensory overload input, it sends you into that hyper-aware anxiety panic state. So for me, particularly visual, I hated being on trains, the flicking of lights on trains, or driving through tunnels for a while, or, going to a concert and they had strobe lights. I just closed my eyes. So anything that was like that, it was horrible for a while. I remember having to pull over driving one day and just having to get my breath back and get my vision back, so it kind of tunnel vision me. Being on a train, I'd have to sort of sit there and just cover my eyes and my ears to get places. If there was, going out socially and there was too many people there and there's a lot of noise happening, again, just like boom, panic attack would kind of happen. And so it was, really horrible for a while there, because you don't want to be that person who's having to pull themselves out of a social situation. As I said, I was beforehand quite social, so found myself really withdrawing from friends or situations or events because I felt like I couldn't handle them. So that's when I went and saw a psychologist for that side of things. Like, I never felt scared of hitting my head again or getting concussed again. That was never, like, for some weird thing, that was never a worry. I went and saw them more for the anxiety side of things and to try and manage, so I can just manage life. Like, sometimes work meetings were difficult. You'd be sitting there and you're meant to be concentrating on what people are saying, but you're just sitting there being like, don't faint. it's okay, just breathe. And that's all you can think about. So it really made work, life, and every other life just difficult. So I went to a guy called Dr. Carlos Ronaldo, who's functional neurologist. So he had background as a chiropractor. So I knew him through uni. He was one of our tutors, but then he was always doing some of our neurology lectures as well, and he moved into more functional neurology. So any head injuries, concussions, that kind of stuff. So when I saw him for about 6 months, and I think that was one of the best things. He had a lot of extra technology and knowledge in and around, I guess, what I was talking about before, that vestibular system and how we need to rewire it so that at least the physical side is calmed down. So then you've got that more energy to get on with life. But it was definitely a lot of, I had to wear these goggles while I was in there and do all these different head movements and body movements whilst maybe on a balance beam or those cushions, and try and keep my balance and get things reset in my eyes, my ears. Also work myself up to stress, a heart rate range of stress, and then do different cognitive functions. So, memory recall, picture recall, problem solving. But you had to do that after you got your heart rate up. So say I was on a treadmill or something, and then go and do those kind of things and see how my stress response was affecting my memory and my cognitive behavior, but under that same thing of using your body as well.
So was it all about exposing yourself to those things to train it? Because it's quite often people try and prevent themselves. Yeah, that's right.
And I think, it was that kind of gradual build up, getting harder and harder. Let's get your baseline to where I got to 6 months later. And he was like, you're that 6 months later, he was like, you're as at much risk now as anyone else on that field. So
in your day-to-day life, what would you do day-to-day to manage symptoms?
Well, I guess the little exercises he would give me, I'd have to do them every day. So even just simple stuff like if I had a swivel chair at work, putting a post-it on the wall in front of me and having to do stuff where I either swivel my body, keeping my eyes on it, or swivel my head, keeping my eyes on it at different angles, things like that. But breathing, it became such a big part of that. Was part of the psychology work having to do. So like breath work, just a lot of self-talk as well, that sort of self-managing of, even when I said to you, you're just in a meeting, nothing bad's going to happen here, the door's over there, the bathroom's over there. That was definitely something for a long time. I had to know where the escape routes were if I was in a certain situation. If you do faint, so what? What's going to happen then? Nothing. Which never happened, is like never passed out, never fainted, but it's always, as I think anyone with anxiety, it's the anxiety of it might happen or it's going to happen, and you feel like everyone's looking at you and, you're twitching and trying to just get through, and you feel like everyone's like, what's wrong with this person? But, most people have got their own things they're dealing with, so they're not paying attention to you. I'm fine. One-on-one was always seemed to be okay. Thank God, being a chiropractor, because, most people who are coming to see me are already in their own state of stress. They don't need a practitioner who's also stressing out. So that was fine. I was okay with that. And I think because it was something that was such a known, it was such a inbuilt, almost instinct by that stage, it was calming. It was calming to be doing something that I knew like the back of my hand. Well, you never know. Everything's always changing, but that kind of.
But you have that solid knowledge of it. I found the one-on-one as well. To be honest, the one-on-one, even when I went to coaching, I could easily look at a player and see their techniques, fix their techniques, but as soon as I had to look at a whole field, no idea. Just
no
nothing.
idea. No idea. And I think maybe that's why I wanted to come back to football so much. And it's like, that's a known. I know that. Let me come back. But yeah, definitely. The other thing that really helped me when I saw the psychologist is EMDR. So it's eye movement dissociation reprocessing technique. So it's basically look like it's on this T stand almost, and there's these little individual lights, and then they'd each flash individually, so it'll be going across. So it'd look like this light traveling back and forward across this bar, and you have to look at it and talk about whatever the thing is that makes you anxious. And sometimes we'll talk about, the concussion, even though you couldn't really remember it, but maybe the fear of being concussed again or the risk of being concussed again. And I found after doing 2 sessions of that, I had about 10 sessions with the psychologists, but we did two or three sessions of that. I don't know what it does, but after those sessions, my anxiety went so far down.
Incredible.
It was almost like, oh my God, I'm fine. I'm okay now. So if anyone's concussed, go and get that done.
What other advice do you have for people playing sport, looking to come back, or managing their own concussion?
I think the advice would be, understanding that there is a massive spectrum of concussion. There are some people who have that week, or is it 2 weeks off now playing? Is that the protocol? 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And are fine. And that can be the way, maybe the area of the head you hit, or the speed of it or the velocity or something wasn't as much. But then there's a whole different range of things, and understanding that 2 weeks is important, because I know there's been friends of ours who have been concussed and were fine for that first 24 hours, and then maybe try to do a run or something a couple of days later and went bang downhill really quickly and are still struggling with post-concussive syndrome now. I think the advice, go and look into all different things. You are going to have to do the physical side of things and the mental side of things, because that's usually the harder side of it. Doing fun things for your brain. I know I quite often play games, which I wasn't that much into before, but I do them for problem solving, just to do stuff for my brain, because, there is that little bit of worry with all the research out there now that I'm probably likely to have CTE down the track, or some kind of, definitely a higher risk of getting Alzheimer's or dementia or something because of head knocks. So do the important things, do things to train your body and do things to train your mind. And there's no shame in going and asking for those things, especially if you are really focused on getting back to something. But also just for daily life stuff, it just makes things so much easier if you've got tools under your belt of how to manage those symptoms. So I know probably 2017 I had another little knock to the head, and I went straight back to Carlo and was like, can you retest me? How far off have I come from my where I was when you told me I'm allowed to go back and play? Have I slipped off that line? Do I need to go back and do some more work again? It's just having those type of people that you can go back and refer to and go, okay, bring me back to where I need to get to. So I know I've got him there. He's got all of my scores from when I originally hurt myself to the 2017 to, if I was to do it again, I probably would fly back and say, hey, test me.
How would you feel about them or any club doing a baseline for every player at the beginning of every year?
Yeah, I think they should. I know that there's been chat about it and talk about that's something that should be protocol, but it doesn't happen yet. So I know even, a couple of the clubs I've played with at the VFL level, talking to different girls on different teams, it hasn't happened. And I think, we've even had we've done our feedback for the season and said, these are important things. We probably should all be screened, for the concussive stuff. So then, if when it does happen and we're not answering the right questions, for sure. And then the physical stuff as well. We need to do the physical and the concussion baselines.
And they're dealing with athletes, so the reflex stuff and the physical stuff in those tests, it's not going to be accurate because you might be dealing with someone with super fast reflexes and they're half speed, but it still looks quick.
Exactly. So it needs to be that individual one. That was even Dr. Carlos was like, you'd pass the test for a normal person right now, but I know that you're not okay, so this is your baseline. And then like that 6 months of difference, he was like, well, yeah, you were shocking back then. So, and you're right, it's the same thing. There's some people who, we've played with some people who it seems like they're concussed in their everyday life. Like, they got to ask them their questions and they're like, I wouldn't know the answer to that anyway. Oh my gosh. So you need to have a baseline for that range.
What are some of the crazy things that your concussion has made you do?
Oh, I saw that question before and it's hard because I did some crazy things before I was concussed, so it's a little bit wild.
There is a memory I have. Weirdly, there's some things stick, and it must have been within the first year of your concussion because whoever was living with you at the time told me that you kept walking out and leaving the stove on.
No. Probably. Really? Possible. Might have been them. No, that's possible. I think there was probably in that first year. There was it was just a bit of a fog for especially that first 6 months.
I used to be driving down the motorway and then I'd all of a sudden just be like, where was I going?
Where am I going?
I'm sure I'm on the right road, but hang on a minute, what motorway am I on?
Oh, no. That's terrifying. That's a little bit scary.
Okay, so we have touched on a little bit of transition back to sport, but let's just touch on it a little bit more. What was that transition back into sport like for you?
Definitely hard, in that I just wanted to go back and play exactly how I played before. Like when the concussion happened, I felt like I was playing really well. I was, we're having a good time. Our team was playing really well, so I just wanted to get straight back in. But our coach at the time, were you there for Huge? Anyway, you would not let me play in the centres anymore. He was like, you're not playing in the centres. It's too dangerous. We're going to protect your head as much as we can as a team. So positional change, that was definitely a thing to help protect me. It just did take a little bit of time to get my fitness back up because that was a big thing as well in those sort of 6 months. Well, particularly in the first 3 months, didn't really do any sport. Took a while to build back up into what I was talking about, getting my heart rate to a point that I was like stressed, getting to that anaerobic kind of phase, just because I just couldn't, just balance-wise, and it would just make me feel so unbalanced and nauseous and just gross. So, definitely took some time to get that fitness back, which then also relates into, I think, skills. When you're fitter, things are just easier. You've got more energy to concentrate on the finite parts of the game. So I think there was that little bit of time taken to get back up to where I was, which was frustrating. But yeah, it's only very recently that I've gotten back into playing centres. So yeah.
Where you belong.
Where I belong. I'm also playing forwards now. Can you believe it? I've played 2 games in the forward line this year. 4 goals,
Wow.
2 games, 4 goals. Put me back up front. I've been playing in the wrong position all my life. I've been playing in the half-back line. I'm meant to be in the half-forward line.
I don't remember you ever playing forwards.
No, I think I've played forwards now 3 games in 12 years. And that's it. I was like, all right, we'll give this a go. No problems.
A bit of extra respect, though, for the forwards. It's not as easy as it looks.
Yes, actually, much more respect for the forwards now.
That's such a lie. You're like, all the glory. I do all the hard work in the middle.
Yeah, I was like, I like the middle. Middle's fun. But yeah, no, forward was pretty fun. Forward was fun in the way that I was like, oh my God, this is great. They have to chase me. Let's go for a run. Come follow me. Let's go for a little trot everywhere. Whereas in the back line, you're kind of, responsible. So there was a few times I was just sort of standing there in the forward line. And I was like, oh, sweet, we've intercepted it. Then I'm going, oh, they're kicking it to me. It's me. Yes. That was, I don't know if that's still the concussion there then. No.
Okay.
What was the question?
There was no question.
Okay.
I was just giving
it was this transition back to football. Yeah. Good.
Oh yeah, I think you've answered that. That if there was something you wish you knew before your concussions that you know now, what would that be?
That there is a bit of stigma around concussion. I think. I wish. Yeah, I feel like it's really held me back. As you said at the beginning, I wanted to get to that highest level, and I feel like it's something that's sort of been attached to me as like it's part of me, but I'm like it's something that happened to me that I've worked on and I've moved on from, and yeah, I think I wish I knew that beforehand. Maybe I would have played slightly differently to how I've played. I've always been told that I've been a fairly aggressive player in a way, that I want the ball. I'm ball get. I'm an inside centre. It was always how I played. I didn't really play with too much worry or concern of being hurt. So maybe I think that's a big thing that people always talk about now, slightly changing the way that you play, maybe turning, definitely turn the body more now in situations. But I feel like I was doing that beforehand. But sometimes I think, sometimes you're just unlucky. It was just like I got absolutely nailed in that tackle. It was obviously a good tackle. I've done that to people in the past. We tackle people, and unfortunately, it just like get you. But I think it's really good that they're bringing in more of that, like getting the sling tackles out of the games. Never liked any of the like stupid hitting people off the ball situations of the game. I think that's great that they're bringing in more of like downfield 50s for off the ball stuff, because it's just so unnecessary. It gets people when they're not ready for something to happen, that's when they're likely to get injured more. So yeah.
If there was any advice for a player with techniques on preventing getting a knock to the head, what would a couple of those techniques be? Turning
your body if you're going in to get a ground ball, if you know that someone's coming at each other, making sure you turn your head to protect yourself, or trying to at least, as you turn, even getting your arm up slightly to just get something between you and them. And learning, I think it's disappeared a bit in the last couple of years, but learning how to be tackled. So, that making sure you keep your head up so you're not going to smack your head on the ground. And, doing a lot of work at training a lot of 360-degree drills. Like so often, you know, we do our kicking off the line, kicking in lines, handballing down lines, but we do, I know down here, we do a 360-degree drill where you're literally having to turn and get balls coming in from all directions just to get your peripheral vision better, because it is that 360-degree game. You can get hit and tackled from any direction. I know at a higher level we try and get our bodies a little bit stronger to take the hits, and yeah, just working on knowing when to brace and knowing when to actually go with it. So yeah, all those
is there some conditioning that players can do to strengthen their necks or anything like that?
It is hard. It's such a hard area to try and strengthen, but yeah, I think they're bringing in a lot more of trying to get us to do chin-ups and shoulder press and bench press and getting some mobility, even some resistive work with like resistance bands or towels where you resist the neck and do different movements to try and get it a little bit stronger. Yeah, even just trying to work on the shoulders a little bit, that you've got that extra padding in between if you do get hit. But yeah, I think a big one is doing more drills at a 360-degree, just getting that real awareness of what's around you. And yeah, and that helps so much with balance as well. You're less likely to be dizzy after the hit as well if you're already conditioned to have the head move quickly in different directions.
Yeah. All right. So what is in store for Jen Lew in 2022?
2022. I think I'm going to go one more round. One more, make it a lucky number 13 season. Yeah, plan is to do one more season VFL, and then probably move into coaching it all depends on my body as well. Like I am in my 30s now, we won't say the exact number, and 13 seasons straight. So I've had a couple of injuries along the line, but yeah, my body is starting to feel those 13 straight seasons. So but one more year to try, and now I'm going to be a forward. Now I'm going to kick some goals. Now I can say that I've been a back, mid, forward properly.
Oh my God, I would have loved to have you in the forward line. Are you kidding? My protector.
No, you protect me.
Okay, last thing I have is I just have 5 quick questions to ask. They're a little not necessarily to do with concussion.
All right.
Okay. Hot 5. What is your hidden talent?
I can shake my eyes on demand, but you might not be able to see it on the camera. It's too far away.
Let's give it a go.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think you can see it. Anyway, my eyes.
Can see it a little bit.
You can see it.
Okay, your best and worst roommate.
Best would probably be my partner now, Ali. Worst is actually my sister. She's a mess. She's a hot mess. She's better now that she's a parent, but when we lived together, she was a mess.
Okay, favorite quote.
Ooh. The virtue's in the struggle, not the prize.
Oh, I like it. Okay, career highlight.
I would say the exhibition match in 2013, being able to play for Demons, and running for Australia once.
Very nice. Sports person who had the most influence on you as a player.
As a player.
Doesn't have to be an AFL player.
I think probably it's not a famous person. Probably the person who has had the most influence on me as a sports person was my running coach when I was younger. Actually, he just really understood me and really knew what worked, what pushed me, got me to a higher level. I think always some of the words he said to me and his belief in me has always stuck with me in times when I've felt really down and out or I can't keep going with this. I've really had his voice in the back of my head being like, pick yourself up, gal. Yes, you can. Off you go. But for him, so that was Mr. Manning, was his name, Mr. Peter Manning. I think otherwise, I mean, like a lot of people, Kathy Freeman was like just massive idol. Like she was just amazing, that how good she was at everything, but also she was always herself in interviews. She was always hilarious. So you could tell that she hadn't been trained with interviews and that she just stood up to everyone and was like, no, I'm carrying both flags here. This is who I am. This is my people. So she did the hard things that were the right things.